The Bridge by Steve Vernon. Performed by Drew Blood. It was one hell of a long, hot day. The scribbled map showed a city somewhere between here and the ocean, only it didn't say just how far he had to ride to get there. Harley hoped the old bike had enough in it to get him there. "Fuck it," he said. "I'll get there or I won't." He decided that it was time for a smoke. Problems always seemed to grow smaller once you'd given them a couple of fingers or two of good homegrown tobacco. He carefully dug his makings for a cigarette out of the man-skin pouch. He sniffed the tobacco suspiciously. The barter man had sworn that it was tobacco, but odds are it wasn't. Tobacco was hard to find. "Probably nothing but dried horse shit," he said. He lit up, leaned back and inhaled. He let the smoke drift out slowly, savoring the taste. Then he spat into the dust. "Horse shit, damn it," he said. He finished the cigarette anyways. It wasn't bad for horse shit, and smoke was awfully hard to come by in these late grim days. After the smoke, he dug out some dried fruit and grain from another sack. He crammed it into his mouth and washed it down with a swallow gulp of hard drink. He watched a lazy black-feathered street cleaner circling high above him. For a moment, he thought about taking a shot at the bird, but then he changed his mind. "A waste of ammo," he decided. He cursed it instead. "Fly the fuck away from here, bird," he said, speaking softly because his throat was too dry to waste on yelling. "There's no meat for you today." He stepped to the side of the road, loosened his pants and squatted and had a crap. Then he buried that crap with the remains of the smoke and arose with a satisfied fart. He walked over to his bike. It was a good bike. It had belonged to his old man, who had pieced it together from half a dozen wrecks found in the city. After building it, the old man had left the city to ride the wild roads. He traded for a woman from a barter man, got a son from her, and then got himself killed. Young Harley could still remember kneeling by his old man's broken body. The bike had fallen in the sand. Even then, young Harley had been old enough to stand the bike back up and determine that it could be fixed and ridden. Unfortunately, his old man had fallen on the rocks and could not be fixed. "Damn machine finally got me," his old man had told him.
"What's a machine?"
young Harley had asked. "The bike's a machine," his old man had said. "The city I found it in was a machine too. A great big machine that didn't like men who did not have any magic."
What's magic?"
young Harley had asked. The old man showed young Harley his good luck charm, the one that he had always wore around his neck for as long as young Harley could remember. "This is magic," the old man had said. "Not much magic, maybe. Just the kind of magic that is only good for making crossings." The son wanted to ask what a crossing was, but the old man started choking and hacking gobs of blood and spittle with every hawk he spewed. "I ain't got much time," the old man rattled. "Just stay away from the machines is all I have to tell you."
"Why?"
the old man cursed. "Machines is what runs things now," the old man explained. "They're like men, only they don't think so much." The light in the old man's eyes grew hazy, like the sky when the sun was going down. "When I was a boy," the old man went on, "men ran things, but then men let the machines take over. It was for the good of all, was what they said." He choked again. More blood, more spittle. He couldn't have had that much left, Harley thought. "Maybe men don't think too good either," the old man said, his voice weakening like the squeaking of the desert crawlers the old woman made into stew. "Anyway," the old man went on, "the machines have figured out how to use shooters. how to kill, how to make us die. The old man spit.
If the city is so tough,
Harley asked.
If the machines are so big and tough, how come you got away?
Harley had never dreamed that a question could be so damned important, but now he had more of them than the night twinklers in the moonless sky. The old man had never stayed still for so very long until tonight. Now he was dying. There was no more time for questions. There was no time left. Machines are big, but dumb, the old man said, waving the charm, a round metal disc with strange markings on both sides. Magic built them, and they still think they need magic to work. If you give them enough magic, they will not hurt you. More choking, more blood. Then the old man closed his eyes and stopped breathing, and Harley twisted the charm from the old man's grasp. He tossed the body over his back, and he wheeled the two of them back to the woman. It was a long walk and a hard carry, but there was just no sense leaving so much fresh meat for the road cleaners. Harley fixed the bike. He strapped a couple of fast shooters onto the bridge of the bike's handlebars, tucked a sharp hunting blade into his right boot, and he became a rider. The woman was his by right. He traded her to a barter man for supplies, and he took the map that the old man had shown him, the map to the city. He guessed he was going home. He wasn't sure what it was like or what he would feel when he got there, but he was certain sure that he was going home. It was time to ride. He swung his leg over the bike and rubbed his good luck charm twice and fired the big bike into a roar. He turned the bike into the wind and gave it its head. The air that burned through his nostrils stank of death somewhere farther down the road. The road cleaner was still following them, flapping its great dirty wings in the hot desert breeze. Maybe the bird knew something that the rider didn't. He saw a hill ahead. He rolled to the top and then killed the engine. He needed the time to sit and think. He saw a river. Good, he could use the water. He saw a bridge. Good, he could use the bridge to cross the river. He saw a house on the bridge. What the fuck? Who in the hell would live on a bridge? Whoever was living in that little house would want whatever the rider carried. He checked his fast shooters carefully and made sure that his hunting blade was loose in his boot. He rolled the bike down the hill slow and easy. The death stink was reeking from out the river water. Damn it. He couldn't drink that stuff. He probably wouldn't even want to swim in it. The little house looked hard, like it was made out of stone of some kind. He could see no windows, just a little basket in front. A barter man's wagon lay in front of the little building. It lay all over in front of the building, lying on its side and its back and its belly, shot to pieces by the look of it. The barter wagon was covered with big shooter marks, great big ones. The barter man lay beside a shot-up wagon. The road cleaners had already picked at his meat. It didn't look like any of the barter goods were touched. He could see go juice and hard drink and dry food. No women, though. He must have been a poor barter man, or else maybe the road cleaners had carried her off. Harley loaded as much goods as he could cram into his shoulder bag. Then he rolled his bike between the wagon and the little building. He felt safe. There was nothing out here but the dead. He could not sniff a trace of man stink. Then the big shooter ripped Harley's bike in two. Hell! Harley dove for cover. A big, ugly, mean shooter poked out of the little building's front side. It hadn't been there before. He would have seen it. That must mean that someone lived inside that little stone house. Someone mean and someone sneaky. Someone who didn't stink of man stink. Maybe a machine. Harley still didn't know what a machine looked like. But whoever was in that little building He looked to be a pretty stubborn asshole. Harley wiggled in close to the stone building, tucking himself in the shadow of the big shooter's barrel. Then he reached up quick-like and grabbed that barrel, intending to yank it from the user's grip. Instead, he only burned his hand. Shit! Now what? He was burned, backless, and mad as hell. But what could he do? If he moved from his position, he would be backshot, certain sure. No, there was only one thing left for him to do. He had to get this big shooter asshole to come out of his safety of the little stone building. Maybe he could talk him out. Hey, asshole, he said. Come on out. I wants to talk to you. The asshole in the little stone building said,
Please deposit 1 quarter in the basket.
1 quarter? 1 quarter of what? Harley stared at the stone building's little basket. Maybe the asshole wanted some food. Couldn't be all that much room in that little stone building for supplies. He poured some of his dry food into the basket. He added some dry fruit just to be sure. Come out, asshole, he cajoled. I won't hurt you. The fruit and the grain spewed out of the basket. Maybe the asshole wasn't hungry.
Warning,
the asshole said.
Attempted vandalism will bring reprisal. Please deposit 1 quarter in legal tender.
Tender? Okay. If the asshole wanted tender, then tender he would get. He tenderly poured out a little more grain and dried fruit into the basket. He couldn't tell if it was a quarter or if the asshole meant that he wanted the basket a quarter full. So he guessed. This time the asshole spewed the food back out into Harley's face, which really pissed him off. A soft wafting of smoke drifted up from the basket. It smelled differently than any of the smoke the rider had ever smelled before. Maybe it was real tobacco. Harley had heard tell of such a thing.
Warning, warning,
the asshole said.
A 3rd warning will bring reprisal.
Okay, so the asshole didn't eat, but he did smoke. Maybe he drank as well. Harley unslung his full skin of hard drink. He took a sip and shook his head sadly. It was good stuff, and a shame to waste it on the likes of the asshole, but he didn't see any other choice. Besides, if the asshole drank enough, then sooner or later he would need to step out of the little stone building to have a leak. It only stood to reason. There wasn't enough room in that little stone building for a pot to pee in. Even if the asshole stuck it out the door, Harley figured he could just grab it long enough to cut it off and finish the deal. He pulled his hunting blade out of his boot. He was ready. Then, with his left hand, he reached up and poured the entire skin full of hard drink into the little metal basket. There was more smoke. Sparks flew. The asshole must really like hard drink. Then the asshole spit the hard drink back out of the basket, soaking Harley but good.
Warning, warning, warning,
the asshole repeated.
A 3rd warning brings reprisal.
The big shooter barked hard, as strong as ever. It blasted what was left of Harley's bike and the barter wagon as well. Harley squeezed in close to the little stone building, keeping beneath the shadow of the big shooter. He was safe, but he was mad as hell. That was good hard drink. Harley unscrewed the lid of the tin can full of go juice that he had taken from the shot-up barter wagon. He reached up and poured it straight into the basket. He knew how to get the desert crawlers to come out of their hole. He lit his last smoke and dropped it quickly into the basket. Smoke that, you stonewalling asshole. Then he jumped back and rolled himself behind the shelter of the shot-up barter wagon. The big shooter tracked him before the blast went off. The shooter kicked back and fired its last burst into the air, barely missing the damned road cleaner that was still flying overhead. Then the little stone house puked fire. Harley grinned. The asshole was finished. The big shooter dangled uselessly as a limp dick. Now what? He had not bike nor nothing to drink, and damn few supplies left. He still had his luck charm, though. It might help him out of this mess. It might even help him get into the city. He rubbed the charm, liking the feel of the shiny metal disc. There was a funny-looking bird etched on one side of the metal disc. The bird did not look one damn bit like any road cleaner that Harley had ever seen. There was a man's head engraved on the other side of the disc. Maybe it was the god of the machines. Harley started walking. Fuck. He stared at what waited for him on the other side of the bridge. He could see a second little stone house with a second little metal basket and a second big shooter, probably a second asshole in the little stone house as well. He might even be the first asshole's brother. The little stone house just sat there like it had grown up out from the bridge. It hadn't been there before. Harley was sure of that. Where the fuck had it come from? Harley didn't know. All that he knew was one undeniable fact. That big shooter was pointing straight at him.
Please deposit 1 quarter in the basket,
said the second asshole. Harley had just enough time to fling himself into a pile of rubble as the big shooter opened up. He lay there, stretched flat out, tasting the dirt on top of the bridge. A cold, nasty death stink rose from the river below. So here he was, no bike, no go juice, no hard drink, and no shooter. There was nothing but him and the bridge and that second little stone house. He risked a glance over his shoulder. The road cleaner was still there, and he had friends with him. The big black hungry birds were circling patiently. Harley stared past the ugly birds toward the open sky. He clutched his good luck charm tighter. It had belonged to his old man. It was all that Harley had left to remember, and he would be damned if he would ever let the machines get this last shiny silver memory. The sun hung heavy and fat and full above him. Harley stared at the silver quarter in his hand. It was going to be a hell of a long, hot day.